Brace yourselves, boys. We're going in.
Am I hallucinating here? Just what in the hell do you think you're doing?
I'm not reading. I'm just looking at the pictures.
Welcome to the cold, hard truth on sports.
Welcome, everybody, to another great week here of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. I am your host, Matthew Long. A little under the weather still. I don't know why. It just won't go away. I don't have mono. It just seems to be, maybe it's puberty. I don't know. Can you have puberty in your 30s? I don't know. I don't think that's a thing. But yeah. So this is it's hanging around. I don't know why. But thank you all for listening in. For all of you listening live over on BlogTalkRadio.com and those that listen on Spreaker.com and the free Spreaker app. If you haven't gotten the free Spreaker app, please take a few minutes and download the free Spreaker app. It's free, and it's awesome. You can listen to the full show live and uninterrupted and enjoy all of it. All right, and I'll be joined by my co-host, Kevin Crest, here shortly. The producers here are promising that that Facebook Live will be up here shortly. So if you're tuning in now, normally watching over on Facebook Live, it's supposed to be up shortly. So until then, we will push forward with the show. And what a show we got for you. So I try to keep most of the show about on the field, between the lines, either in a game or in practice, and try to tell the stories of how people are working to improve their lives instead of focusing so much on the idiotic stuff and trouble people find themselves in off the field. It gives me absolute zero pleasure to talk about anybody in a negative light. I don't enjoy it. But when these athletes have made a decision to make bad decisions off the field, then it comes into my realm, and it is something that ends up becoming part of the show. So, that being said, tonight's show, I'm going to talk about the Antonio Brown situation. You thought it was a guy freezing his feet and being overly attached to a helmet, and it's become so much more. And I will get into that tonight. As well as we got 2 weeks of NFL football in the works. Done. Sorry, last night was done. It's not in the works. Sorry, I had a Joe Biden moment evidently there. And in the books. And week 3 coming into, we saw a game last night. They, bettors, gamblers, bookies are saying this is not typically a game you want to bet. You got the backup quarterback on one hand, who ended up being the third-string quarterback. It was just activated this week. So a lot going on in that Monday night game, and it was ugly and one-sided. Probably same way it would have been regardless who was starting for the Jets. So that was a game that a lot of my degenerate gamblers that I talked to, that I live vicariously through, said that's definitely not a game anybody should bet because it's just so wildly unpredictable. But it seemed like I thought it would be just such a one-sided game, and it was. So a little bit about that we'll get into tonight. I have some questions and kind of some assertions, regarding players and coaches that were involved. I'll elaborate, don't worry. Plus, we're heading into week 4 of the college football season, and there are some marquee games slotted. Most teams are into conference play or have at least played one conference game to this point. And I got one pick tonight that Pac-12 fans are just they're not going to like. Sorry, Pac-12, you're not going to like my pick tonight. So, plus Tiger Woods is in the news. In Jupiter, Florida. And no, it's not a massage. It has nothing to do with massaging. It really has nothing to do with Tiger himself, but more so his girlfriend. And Kevin will elaborate on that here tonight too. Speaking of that, that's what you call a segue point. I introduced my co-host. He is the author of the P.K. Frazier novel series, as well as the editor for our golf section of the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. And make sure you take some time. Go over to Amazon, find those P.K. Frazier novels, buy them. I mean, we're coming into the holiday season. I mean, if you haven't been to a store, you see Christmas stuff is out in September now. So that means you can start buying gifts now. It's allowed. That floodgate has opened. So let's welcome on Mr. Kevin Crest. How are you doing tonight, Kevin?
I'm doing great. Good weekend of college football. I think I managed to watch all or part of, I think it was 14 games last week.
My goodness.
I was busy. That's why DVRs are so great, my man.
Aren't they?
So great. I finished watching. I think I finished watching. I want to say I finished watching the last game yesterday afternoon sometime. I forget who it was. It was the late game on Saturday night. But yeah, I watched a lot of football. Got to see a lot of teams, and as I told you earlier today, I went 26-4 last week with my picks, which that's straight up. Of course, it's not against the spread, but so that's a pretty good week. 80, almost 88%, and so that's a pretty good week. I'll take that. Pick some good upsets. K-State to go into Starkville, beat Mississippi State. I picked Arizona State to squeak by Michigan State, which they did. If anybody watched that game, that was a nail biter with some controversy at the end. And I picked Arizona to upend Texas Tech, which they did. They were slight underdogs, and they pulled that out as well. So some good picks in there. So looking forward to this week.
Yeah, we have some quality marquee games this week. Last week was one of the few weeks where you really didn't. There was no ranked team versus a ranked team, but some very interesting games last week. So, and we'll get into that here in a second. Now,
yeah, you know,
I wanted to lead off a little bit about the Tiger Woods situation with his girlfriend. Can you kind of fill in the listening audience on what's going on there in Jupiter? I promised him it had nothing to do with the massage parlor.
No. It's so back in I think it was in March of this year. One of I believe it was an ex-employee of the Woods restaurant, the one that Tiger owns in Jupiter, was killed in a single car accident, and his blood alcohol level, I believe, was at 0.25, which is extremely high. He had a history of alcohol abuse, and he had been drinking at the Woods restaurant the night that he crashed. And his parents filed a lawsuit against the restaurant, Tiger Woods, and his girlfriend, who is the general manager of the restaurant, and alleging that they were all responsible for the death of their son. In June of this year, Tiger Woods was dropped from the suit at the request of his attorneys because he was not present at the restaurant the night of the incident, nor was his girlfriend, by the way. And that was what happened today, Matthew, that you saw and texted me earlier today about what happened. She was subsequently dropped from the lawsuit as well. What I couldn't find out, I couldn't find out because it is late breaking, is if the lawsuit has been dismissed totally, or if the restaurant is still being named in the lawsuit, and the lawsuit is going forward. I'll have to get some information on that. We can touch on that next week. But right now, the individuals, Tiger Woods and his girlfriend, have both been dismissed from the suit, and so it would just be the restaurant which he owns. I saw one report where there's a lot of sketchy reports out there from people, that bloggers, et cetera, don't do their homework, that intimated that he did not own the restaurant, but he does in fact own the restaurant. He invested $8 million to build this restaurant in 2015. And so it is Tiger Woods' restaurant. It's called The Woods. It's in Jupiter. And so I've not been able to find out if the lawsuit against the restaurant is still active. But he and his girlfriend are off the hook, at least from an individual perspective. If the restaurant's named in the lawsuit, then obviously his business insurance is going to kick in, and he's not personally liable from that if he's got that set up legally. And I'm pretty sure that Tiger has his ducks in a row from a legal perspective on liability, personal liability, from what happens to his restaurant. But that'll be forthcoming. So that's really the long and short of that situation. Tragic situation.
Yeah.
Young man died in a car accident. His parents filed a lawsuit, including Woods and his girlfriend, but they've both been dismissed. Tiger in June, her today, or yesterday. I can't remember. I think it might have been yesterday.
Yeah, yesterday
the news broke today.
They voluntarily removed her name from the lawsuit, from what I read.
Yes, and so I think the lawsuit is probably still pending against the restaurant. My feeling is that it was a little bit of a money. I don't want to call it a money grab because these are grieving parents who lost their son. So I think they named him enough.
Well, they have a right
to get, some additional.
Yeah, they have a right to seek damages.
But in this case, it's the restaurant, which the restaurant itself has limited assets.
Yeah.
So some insurance kick in, whatever, but they're not going to be able to go after Tiger's $1 billion. In essence, is why he was dropped in June.
Yeah.
And she was dropped today. So that's all I know about that. Tragic. I knew I had been following the story up until June when he was dropped. Excuse me, from the lawsuit. And when you first texted me today and asked me about it, it had been kind of under the radar for several months. So it took me a little while to click into to what had happened. I didn't even realize the lawsuit was still active.
Yeah, but that's what I wanted to bring it up today because I saw his girlfriend was I said that yesterday they voluntarily took her off of being named. So I just wanted to make sure we covered it tonight and get, as a golf editor, get your point of view from following it. So. But that's good. That's a great thing about.
That doesn't mean the restaurant's off the hook.
No, yeah. Just so people understand what happens there, it's called a veil of protection. So when a business is set up as a limited liability corporation or a legal standing or status similar to that, it protects person that may own the restaurant or people in charge of the restaurant, because it makes it a separate entity. So this way, the people that own it aren't personally responsible in case stuff like this happens. So the most that anybody would be able to do is, end the restaurant, whatever assets, including value in any accounts or insurance or something like that. That would be the top of it, but they wouldn't be able. It protects the owner, Tiger Woods. It protects the manager, which happens to be his girlfriend. So that's the good part about it. LegalZoom's not a sponsor, but when we talk about this stuff, obviously that LegalZoom, hit me up. We'll figure that stuff out. But it's good to make sure you do have businesses set up with those type of protection. So, but I want to take a second to welcome in. I just want to welcome in our audience over on Facebook Live real quick. Thank you for everybody tuning in over on Facebook Live. I appreciate it. Thanks. Also, for those that are listening live right now on Spreaker.com or the free Spreaker app, and of course, those of you that have been with us from the beginning on the Blog Talk Radio. All right, what were you saying, Kevin?
One more comment on the Tiger Woods situation. I don't know what the details of how he has that set up. Somebody like Darren Ravel from ESPN, or even one of our own legal analysts that's called in before that we've had called in, might have more information. But I'm assuming it's just a standard, S corp or LLC that it's its own entity that Tiger put money into to start the restaurant, and it's limited liability in terms of its own personal situation. So,
it probably take me 10 minutes to look it up, because in Florida, every business has to be, if it's a corporation, it has or LLC, has to be registered under sunbiz.org. It's a requirement, so it would be there, and who the register is and all that stuff. So all that stuff's supposed to be easy to look up and verify here in Florida. So, but
that's boring, right?
It is
boring stuff. We'll leave that to another time.
It is.
Yeah, so,
it sounds like its own podcast, maybe. I don't know. A tutorial, maybe. I'll figure out how to do screen capture, and I can just screen record and go over it with, nobody's going to watch that. Maybe two people in like 4 years from now will watch it, but no, I don't think nobody's tuning in live to that broadcast. So
no, not to get into legal details of the Woods restaurant in
I know.
For now, I don't think so.
This is how you set up their business.
Now Antonio Brown, that's a whole different story.
Oh, that is.
Antonio Brown is he's got his own reality show going on. He's pretty entertaining.
I'm pretty sure that this is one instance where he wished he wasn't starring in this reality show, because I read the complaint tonight. So just the kind of just one of the complaints, because there's many complaints. People have taken the liberty in the last few weeks to file dozens of lawsuits against him. The one that's most prevalent is the Brittany Taylor versus Antonio Brown. The one where she's alleging on 3 different occasions that he either sexually assaulted her or raped her. So, I did want to address that, because I see comments, lots of comments, lots of very ignorant comments about it, and just talking from just specifically from the psychology of the victimology of it. So I know a lot of people say, if this is 3 three different things happened. Why would someone go back and put themselves in harm's way? Again, it's not. They didn't have a romantic relationship per her complaint, per her side of the story. They didn't have a romantic relationship. At most, it was more like a sister-brother relationship that was started when he was at Central Michigan in a essentially a Bible study group where they were paired together. That's how they met. They fell off and on in communication over the years, and then in 2017, he solicited her to come help him with flexibility and fast twitch, which is something she was actually specialized in. She owned and operated still a gymnastics training facility in Nashville, Tennessee. So she's known well for flexibility and fast twitch, which is something very common with gymnasts. So he brought her to, first time was in Pennsylvania when he was with the Steelers, or just before he went to join the Raiders, and there was some questionable behavior on a couple different days during that her first visit up there to work with him, and then the most recent time was in May of 2018 in his home in Miami, and they say Miami home. It falls more under the jurisdiction of the area of Hollywood, though the home is actually located in Fort Lauderdale. So, and I have confirmed that through public record that is actually the home is in Fort Lauderdale. So, now, the situation is they do have some sort of a familiar relationship. So it's not that she was some stranger that just came in, or he had met her recently by happenstance. There was a sense of understanding and trust and a relationship that they had built. Although, from her understanding and the way that she said she conducted herself, it wasn't in pursuance of any sort of sexual or romantic relationship, that she was professional. He evidently perceived it that way. So after those first couple situations, he kind of bragged to her about, I'm not going to get into the graphic nature of it. Go read the complaint. It's easy to find. I'll have it up on the website tonight so people can access it and read it. But he kind of shunned her off and said he was going to brag about it with a common friend. Months later, he apologized and was begging for forgiveness and wanted her to train him. And she, took his word for it. Then she went down to the Miami home, and that's where the alleged rape happened. And it was really what spurred the action against Antonio Brown. From what I understand, that they had been working to settle this outside of the courtroom and work it out that way without going to court over it. Evidently didn't work out. She filed a civil lawsuit against him, alleging. Now, there has not been, I've checked with Miami-Dade County, which is what's in the complaint, although the home, again, isn't in Miami-Dade County, it's in Broward County. So it's a federal complaint. So I'm kind of confused exactly why it was Miami-Dade County was listed, but the home's in Broward. So usually the jurisdiction of say the police department or sheriff's office that would cover it would be in that county or city. So Broward County, Miami-Dade County have not said that they currently that they can say. They don't have any investigations revolving around him. However, Hollywood, Florida said that the only thing that they had were noise complaints. Outside of that, nothing else there. I'm still waiting to hear back from Fort Lauderdale, so I haven't heard back from them yet. Again, that's where the home was, so it should fall under that jurisdiction. So right now, I don't know of any police force or federal or state local police force that is investigating into any alleged sexual assault or rape or misconduct of Antonio Brown in Florida, as far as I know. I just read the complaint today, so I'm going to check with Pennsylvania as well to see if there's anything there. But a lot of people ask, if there was a crime that happened, why is she doing a civil lawsuit and not a criminal lawsuit? And the thing is, it makes it tough with the criminal lawsuit side. And again, I'm not a lawyer, but I always go to legal help for these sort of questions. And a lot of these situations, if obviously in the legal side, you have to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. If the time there wasn't, an exam done, a rape kit wasn't done, if there's witnesses, there's not, video evidence, or if there's enough there to corroborate with the victim's story, there's a potential that charges may not even be brought against, the accuser. So in many situations, what they'll do is they start with the civil side. And the thing is, if enough shows up in this process or a complaint is entered to the local police department, then an investigation will start. But if there's no complaint, a lot of times they never start an investigation. So we kind of have to wait and see if anything comes of that, because the statute of limitations for this, for what I understood, in Pennsylvania and Florida is still set. It's 3 years in Florida, which is the alleged rape happened in 2018. So there's still a significant amount of time where he could be on the hook for this. So if Antonio Brown may or may not cooperate with NFL investigators, his legal team may tell him not to, because if he answers questions to them, that could open up and lead to grounds for criminal investigation against him. So, she's agreed to, Brittany has agreed to, Ms. Taylor's agreed to cooperate with NFL investigators. And since then, there's been several other complaints as well. One of them actually being a doctor Prisk, who he's suing Antonio Brown for almost $1,200 or $12,000 in unpaid medical fees, and alleged a complaint that Antonio Brown continually farted in his face and laughed about it. I wish I was making that up as a punchline, but that's a part of the actual complaint.
There's a bunch of those, there's a bunch of. Let me add a couple more pieces of information. She has already met with the NFL. I think she did that yesterday.
That's what my understanding was.
So that interview took place. Secondly, it was reported on. I heard this on the Dan Patrick show today, that apparently Antonio Brown had offered to settle it for $2 million, and then at the last minute backed down off of that. So that's kind of significant as well. But as you said, there's no criminal charges have not been brought. The NFL's in a little bit of a tough spot here, because there has been no criminal charges brought of what to do with Antonio Brown at the moment. They did interview her, and so she's cooperating. And she got married last weekend. So that's kind of an odd timing for all of this as well. just more drama to the soap opera, I guess. And then there's a number of lawsuits, as you mentioned. These are penny anything. These are, excuse me, $700 here, $2,000 there. Stuff that he promised to pay for. He had somebody deliver an aquarium with piranhas in it for $2,000. Didn't pay the bill. So for a guy worth $69 million, he's acting rather erratically when it comes to the payment of these bills. Now, obviously, his agent Drew Rosenhaus can clean all that up in a heartbeat. Those aren't things that are probably going to amount to him losing time in the NFL. I'm sure there's a lot of deadbeats in the NFL that don't pay their bills, especially the guys that get it over their heads with signing bonuses and spend all of it and don't have any money left. But obviously, the most problematic for him is this civil lawsuit from this young woman claiming sexual assault and rape, which we'll have to see how that transpires. But that's what I know as well. So,
and then
in the whole time he's playing for the New England Patriots, at least
right
for the time being,
at least temporarily. I did.
Yes.
Like I said, as far as I know, there's no active investigation. Although I just wanted to kind of circle back to what I said there. The Allegheny County, Allegheny County. It's the district attorney's office.
Allegheny
County. Yep, Pittsburgh.
Yeah, Pittsburgh's in
Allegheny County.
Allegheny County, Pittsburgh. Yeah.
The DA's office did say that that they would be looking into sexual assault allegations leveled against the former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown. Again, and that was from the KDKA's Andy Sheehan Department of. It reported from the director or the district attorney Stephen Zappala. Kevin, I am having a time tonight. I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. But it's again, states. The interesting things about sex crimes and stuff like this, although, like I said, a lot of police departments ask for or look for a complaint to be registered, the district attorney, as someone who is responsible for the safety and security and to protect citizens by law, can bring charges against somebody without a complaint if they see that there is reasonable or due cause to do so. So they can decide that, hey, listen, we've heard enough that this will count as a complaint. Although official complaint hasn't been reported, they can look into the matter because, again, it's part of public safety. So if they feel that there's an issue with public safety there, and a lot of times if there's a situation where somebody, again, there's it's not just one person. It's not just Miss Taylor. There's several other people that have alleged of these sort of lewd acts of him, exposing himself to people. So it's not something that is an isolated incident. It's something that has been a serial act. So they're without provocation. So it's something we'll just have to continue to watch. I know from my talks with people, there is a good likeliness because of because of how this has swollen and festered. It's likely that he might get put on the commissioner's exempt list. Could be as early as tomorrow. Now that a district attorney said that they were going to look into, again, that was on September 11th, that they were going to look into criminal side of it. So it'll be interesting to sit back and see where it comes. Now, if he goes on the commissioner's exempt list, That would mean he wouldn't be able to play or participate, but the Patriots would still have to pay him, which at that time they're probably going to find a clause in his contract that says any off-field bullshit that voids your contract. And they'll probably void it and release him. So he won't be in the NFL anymore. That's likely what would happen if he gets put on the commissioner's exempt list. Moving forward there. All right, so we'll move on from there. Just a little bit more on the NFL. Obviously, there was news today that Ben Roethlisberger will be going on season-ending IR, kind of sticking with the trend of the Steelers here. Running back Connor is beat up too. He's been struggling with some injuries, but Ben Roethlisberger's issue is an elbow issue. That is, they believe it's tendon related. I don't know if it's the Tommy John tendon or ligaments thereby, but it's enough to where he's gonna have elbow surgery on it. Now he sounded confident that he will be back next season, but again, I wouldn't necessarily count on it because he was just talking about retirement, and he did just sign a new contract. So usually you don't end signing a new contract on the note of, I'm going to have surgery, I'm out. So that's kind of one of those have to kind of wait and see situations as well. But those that didn't have the Steelers winning the division definitely don't have them winning the division now. Kevin, what do you think of the Steelers' chances without Ben Roethlisberger?
They don't have any. I mean, they just don't. I mean, yeah, they lost.
They're up the river.
They lost Le'Veon Bell. They lost Antonio Brown from last year. Now, not that Le'Veon Bell played last year, but yeah, they've got James Conner. Yeah, they have Schuster, the other wide receiver. But you know, these guys weren't used to being the alpha males, and you know, now without Roethlisberger, I mean, Mason Rudolph, we'll see how he does. I know that the Steelers are high on him, but I don't see much chance. I mean, they're already 0-2, so you know, it's not like they went 2-0 and Roethlisberger went down. You go, oh wow, they're playing pretty well. They played like crap. I mean, even with Roethlisberger. So, you know, I don't see a lot of chance for them this year. I mean, they were probably a wild card at best with him, especially given the way the Ravens have come out of the chute. And that's, of course, as we talked, you know, last week and week before, you know, it's going to be another week or two before we really see, you know, who's who in the zoo. But right now, I don't think they have much shot. They did trade for a defensive back from Miami today or yesterday, to shore that up. But they need a quarterback, or they'll just stick with Mason Rudolph, see how he does. I know they're high on him. They drafted him in I believe he was a second-round draft pick, not a first round. And so we shall see. But I don't think they have much chance. And that division's, you know, not easy. The Browns are better, although you couldn't tell it from last night against the depleted Jets team. But the Browns are going to be better than they have been. And, of course, the Ravens now are looking pretty good with Lamar Jackson. Although they didn't score a ton of points on Sunday, but they still won. And Jackson put up some pretty serious numbers. So I tell you, a game to circle on the NFL schedule is not this coming weekend, but next weekend is the Ravens against the Chiefs. And that is going to be a shootout. There could be a lot of points scored in that game. You know, both those teams could score in the 40s.
Do you have
and then you get to halftime.
Who would you favor?
I mean, that could be a. Right now, I'm going to favor the Chiefs only because they're a little bit ahead of the Ravens in terms of
a little bit.
You know, the familiarity the familiarity with Mahomes in the offense. They played a number of big games last year. Baltimore's, a couple of years removed from some real good success. So I would just have to give that just the slightest. Okay, I'm not even, I'm just saying the slightest of edge, right, to the Chiefs at the moment. We'll see how they play this week. But that's probably where I would lean right now. But the Chiefs' defense isn't all that great, and the Ravens probably have a better defense. But this might be such a high scoring game. It might just be the team that has the ball last. I mean, it could be like that. What was it last year? Was it the Chiefs Rams game last year that was such a high scoring affair? And by the way, the game is at Kansas City, so I've got to give them a little bit of an edge. That's one of the true home field advantages in the NFL.
Yeah.
It's more like a college atmosphere. It is a true home field advantage. That place is raucous. They're loud, and so I just got to give the edge there. But it could change this weekend. See how the two teams do. But I would. Fortunately for me, we are in the Kansas City footprint for the NFL here, so I will get that game on regular television. I won't have to go out and buy it or anything like that. I don't have NFL Sunday ticket this year, but I will be able to get that Kansas City game, which is good. Be able to watch that, and so that should be a heck of a. Oh, that's this weekend. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's this weekend. I wanted to let you finish your analysis
it's
first.
This week. Yeah, it's this week. Sorry, it's Sunday. It's Sunday at 1 o'clock Eastern time, noon Central. Yes, that is Sunday. So yeah, that's must see TV right there.
It is.
I mean, I don't listen. As we mentioned earlier today, the NFL without a preseason or much preseason is just difficult to watch, and you throw in the pass interference penalties now, or the challenges.
Well,
it is just
that's on a 1 year thing, just so people understand the new review. It's a 1 year thing. Because normally once a rule goes in, they have to have 24 votes.
So.
But I think they would have 24 votes even if they didn't need it.
Last night, I thought I'd committed a crime. I'd been convicted to watch the game. I thought it was some kind of, law enforcement thing to make me watch that game because it was pathetic.
Treacherous.
Now, granted, the Jets ended up, using their ninth string quarterback, to come in and, I think they got him out of the first row of the stands. The guy had a jersey. They said, "Hey, come on, I think you can play for us." And so that was ugly. But the Browns actually looked pretty methodical. Baker Mayfield threw a couple of balls he probably shouldn't have thrown, but they played okay. But you can't judge anything by the first couple of weeks because it's so bad. I mean, the Dolphins. Oh my gosh, was that Lane Kiffin coaching FAU against the Patriots on Sunday? Is that who that was?
No.
They just,
Kiffin would have got more points.
Oh, my God.
Why
actually, I think
shoot my guy Kiffin down like that?
They might have scored.
FAU would have scored.
So, anyway, it was ugly football, and it is just, it's difficult to watch. But we have a bunch of 2-0 teams. This might be one of those seasons where we have, 4 or 5 really good teams and 4 or 5 really bad teams.
Yeah.
And you got a bunch in the middle.
Well,
obviously the Patriots are going to be good,
Yeah. Well, kind of getting back to that. I want to get back to that game you were talking about. That is not next weekend. That is actually this weekend. Baltimore, Kansas City. I don't see Kansas City. I guarantee Kansas City covers and wins. I would say that would be my lock of the week. I would lock it there. I don't see Kansas City losing that game. Not because they do have a superior defense, because it very well might not be. It's just that I think that the coaching with Kansas City does a great job, especially when it's coming up against a young quarterback in a system that they're still figuring out. So the thing is, they can draw a lot of things from the college game, which Andy has kind of already implemented and worked around to add into their game. So I think Andy Reid can peer into this and see what they're looking for. A lot of times you'll see the defense actually put in 6 defensive backs. And that comment will get us into college football a little later, a game that was an early game last week we'll talk about here in a little bit. But there's a lot of things that they can do to help stymie that open style of play. The big thing is Kansas City does a decent job against the run. And that run is how they've set up the pass in these couple games. And like you said, it's early. I'm not buying Baltimore. I'm not buying heavy on Baltimore. There's somebody to keep an eye on, but it's such a splash in the pan now. People are paying attention. So I don't think they beat Kansas City. Actually, I'm certain they don't beat Kansas City. Kansas City covers, so I would say that would be a safe game to bet on for Kansas City to win and cover in that game. So it's
Well, here's a good bet for you if you want to make a bet.
All right.
The over under is 54.5.
Okay.
I don't know if that's going to move up or not, but I
Probably
would
will.
bet that over every single day of the week.
I'd take that over.
I mean,
just keep in mind,
Kansas City's a 6.5-point favorite.
They only were able to put 23 points up on the Cardinals, which was like a last place defense last year. And a new system.
That was last year.
With a mobile quarterback
that was last year.
and offense that couldn't. The Cardinals put up 17 points, only allowed 23, and somehow the Cardinals only managed to run for 20 yards in the game. I don't know, but it was a 4-point game. Clearly, touchdowns and rushing yards weren't all that necessary to get points on the board. So what I'm saying is maybe Baltimore is stingy when it comes to giving up the touchdowns, but obviously this Arizona defense, it's not that great of a defense. Again, they did still give up like almost 500, what is it, 500 all-purpose yards? What is it, 440 total yards. They gave it 440 yards. 182 on the ground.
Won by more than,
so
and the Ravens,
and they tried.
Ravens should have scored more than 23 points that game.
And they had 10 penalties. Yeah. They were actively they held the ball for 37 minutes. They had the ball for 15 more minutes, more than 15 more minutes than Arizona, but didn't have any turnovers, but still managed to only put up 23 points. They allowed 17 to an Arizona team that, they don't look good, but they are definitely a team that won't die easy. It's
kind of funny. It's kind of funny with the new head coach that got fired from his college job.
Yeah.
It's kind of crazy, but
that's kind of how Texas Tech was.
I like the Chiefs as well. I mean, I don't know if they're going to cover 6.5, but they're I like the Chiefs to win that game. I think they're just a year ahead. of the Ravens. And by the way, you know,
I think the Chiefs won by 8.
Nobody's figured out Mahomes yet, but they'll figure out Lamar Jackson, and then they'll have to make more adjustments as teams adjust to Lamar Jackson. So, it's going to be exciting to watch for a while until the teams, because the defenses always catch up to these guys eventually, at least in a game or two, and so we'll see. But I'm going to watch that game. It's a very, very exciting game to watch this weekend. As I look at the schedule. I mean, as I said, I watch way more college than I do NFL until it gets, probably by about Thanksgiving I start getting into the NFL because things start to shake out. And, but right now, some of these games are just so unwatchable. I mean, this week we got the Patriots and the Jets. The Jets with a third-string quarterback. Oh, my gosh, that is going to be so ugly.
In Foxborough.
I mean, New England's a 23 in Foxborough. New England's a 23-point favorite. We talked about this last week against the Dolphins, and they covered. I mean, 23 points in a pro line is just ridiculous. I mean, that's a college kind of beat-down line, That's what Alabama gets and teams like that. So the 23 points, it's just...
You can't blame them for what division they're in.
Huge.
It's
the only line this week that's even above like 7 points. Everything else is 6.5 and, a bunch of 6.5. Minnesota's a 9-point favorite over the Raiders. I don't get that at all. But most of these lines are, Green Bay's an 8-point favorite over the Broncos. I get that. That game's in Green Bay. Dallas is a 21.5-point favorite over the Dolphins, but that's the Dolphins. So get used to that because the Dolphins are so bad. They're just so.
I'm an 18-point favorite over the Dolphins. Just by myself.
And then you've got the Titans, Jaguars, ho-hum. Woo! Wake me up when that one's over Thursday night. That's going to be a
You know what?
loser.
The one game I think is probably going to be an interesting game that it's going to be relegated to the worst time slot. It's a 1 o'clock game. Bengals, Bills. I think that's going to be a good game. The Bengals haven't won a game. The Bills have won all their games. There's a lot of hype going into the Bills now being 2-0. But the Bengals, I'm telling you, that what they're looking at, their issue is defensive consistency. They haven't figured out how to work in their run game, and a lot of that comes down to the blocking. So once they can figure out the blocking and get their run game going, I think the Bengals could be dangerous. It's a new system and stuff, so I think it's a matter of time. But they're really talented, especially on defense. So that could actually be a really interesting game to watch. I don't have a favorite in that one. I think that's probably one of the ones that's more of the push. It'd be like if I had to say, that would be like a -2 Buffalo or -3 Buffalo. That's it. But it should be a really close, good game to watch this week. So, another game I'm going to be watching. What do you think? You going to watch Bills, Bengals?
Yeah, I mean, no, I'm going to watch Chiefs. I'm going to watch Chiefs. Chiefs Ravens.
Oh, come on, you don't have more than one TV?
That's the game.
Can't pull that old
game.
tablet up at the same time? Watching one, streaming
no,
one?
I can't watch it. I don't know what. I don't know what's on. I have picture in picture. I can watch two
Oh,
games.
well, there you
I
go.
I don't know who's on.
Fancy guy.
I'll have to check and see who's on Fox. It's probably the Cowboys game.
Probably.
Which I don't know why I would want to waste my time watching the Cowboys beat down
The Miami Dolphins.
the Dolphins. But it's going to be the Cowboys game.
Yeah.
That game's going to be over
Cincy Buffalo is on CBS.
midway through the second quarter.
It's an AFC game, so it's CBS.
So I'll be watching. Yeah, that's on CBS.
So you'll get Kansas City, Baltimore.
Ravens, Chiefs.
Yep.
Yeah. So that'll be on. So I'll watch that one. And I don't know what I haven't looked ahead to the 4:00 games yet.
Well,
See, last week it was.
it's interesting you brought that up.
Last week it was AFC game. So it's probably Texans Chargers is probably the game that will be on here at
4:25.
at
3
4:25 or 3:25 my time,
Yeah.
4:25 Eastern time.
Now, what you might get
so,
is
yeah.
20 minutes of Bucks and Giants, which could be interesting. I sold the Bucks.
I can't even wait for that. I'm just gonna not winning. I'm just gonna sit in my Giants jersey and just wait for that game because that's such a compelling matchup. I mean, I can't imagine a better football game than that one. So good grief. That's what I'm saying.
Your
There's
rookie,
already some dogs. I mean,
your rookie phenom quarterback has finally been blessed by the Manning family and probably Jesus to start playing football on a professional basis for the New York Football Giants.
I wouldn't be surprised to see him start earlier than later.
Oh, it's announced. They announced it today. The Giants announced it today. Daniel Jones will start. Yes. Yep.
Daniel Jones is starting?
Yes. Breaking news. Well, like 6 hours ago, but yeah. Breaking news. Daniel Jones is starting for the New York Giants in Tampa this weekend against the Buccaneers. Yep.
All right.
Most people thought it was going to be like against, because we talked about it, we thought it would be against the Redskins at home. We thought the first game would be against your Redskins in New York, or New Jersey, rather. Well, we're a couple weeks late on our prediction. They said, no, we'll start him on the road against Tampa.
So here's the question: Do the Giants trade Eli?
No, he's gonna have a clipboard and he's gonna be coaching, in pads, clearly, coaching him from the sideline. So that's the mentor role is what Eli is kind of embracing.
Is he going to be he'll be the second string quarterback?
Yeah, it's kind of similar to what.
He'll be available.
Yeah. Well, it's similar to the situation with Kurt Warner. Kurt Warner, when Eli came into the league, and he.
Well, the difference is, but Warner lasted into the 10th week, and he also hadn't won 2 Super Bowls with the Giants. It's a little different. Eli's.
Again,
I think
that's Eli's spin on it. That's the team and Eli's spin on it.
I've watched him play.
And he has not been good.
I've watched both those games for the Giants. He's not been bad. I mean, the team's not very good.
Yeah.
I mean, the team's just not good.
But again, like I said last week,
they don't have any weapons.
Just being called the reason we didn't lose is not. It's not. Obviously, it says it's probably time for us to move forward because you want the quarterback to be the reason you win.
Well,
that's your catalyst for victories.
It probably is time for them to move on because Eli's only a 500 quarterback in his career. He's got the 2 Super Bowls, but his regular season is like 115 and 115 or something like that. So it's not had great. I mean, even the 2 times they won the Super Bowl, I think one of those years they were 9-7. If I'm not mistaken, I think they were 9-7 in the regular season.
I think that's the year that they beat the undefeated Patriots. I think that was the first Super Bowl.
Yeah. So they were 12-7 playing 18-0, Patriots. It was kind of crazy. But that's it. I had missed that. I was actually paying a lot more attention to college football. I was looking at all the games. I was getting my blog ready to get started for this week, because it takes some time to predict and write out 30 games. It takes some time to write that blog, so I got started today. And there's some really good games in college if you want to move that direction, or you want to stay with the NFL.
Let's go ahead and head on over there to college football. Now, you had quite the week. Like you were saying earlier in the show, what, 28-4 on your picks?
26-4, yeah, on the picks. I had a good week. It's 88%. So that's a pretty good week. The one I really missed on, I mean, obviously, the 4 I missed, I'll start there. Because most people don't say what they missed, so I'll say what I missed. I missed on Kansas. I mean, I don't think anybody has predicted that one. Kansas had lost 46 consecutive non-conference Power 5 games.
Yeah.
And went into Boston College and were down and scored, I believe, 28 consecutive points to win that game.
Yeah.
I missed the Maryland game. We talked about that game. You actually liked Temple last week, I think. In that, I think we were talking about that.
Yeah.
So I missed on Maryland. They lost it close when they're that game. I missed the USC BYU game. That was obviously BYU won that in overtime, but that was a close one. Lost that one, and the only other one that I missed was an obscure game. I don't know why I picked this. No, I picked it because I always predict Power 5 interconference games. So NC State at West Virginia, I had picked NC State to win that, but West Virginia did. But I think the story of the year is how bad the ACC is. We thought they were bad. We talked about this on our preview shows, how bad they were, and they have just gone out to prove it. Georgia Tech lost to the Citadel. Virginia Tech beat Furman by 7. Now Furman's a pretty good FCS team, but still, really, they were down. Virginia Tech got down 14-3 at halftime in that game. Came roaring back, scored 3 touchdowns, and took what appeared to be a commanding lead. Then turned the ball over and let Furman back in the game. But that was terrible. NC State lost to not a great West Virginia team at all, and it just the losses just keep mounting for the ACC against non-conference opponents. It's just absolutely pathetic. Outside of Clemson, how bad they are. It's just unbelievable. So that coastal division's wide. I say it's wide open. Virginia's 3-0, but they got by Florida State by 7 the other night. Florida State's not very good. We've talked about that. They'll probably improve, but they're 1-2 right now. 0-1 in the ACC. That's a struggling program.
It's one of the rare. It's one of the rare times where you actually say now that they're playing in-conference opponents, they might get some wins. That's unfortunately that's the fact of the matter with the ACC.
Because it's just bad. Then you had a really weird happening last week where Wake Forest played UNC in a non-conference game.
Yeah.
So Wake Forest beat Carolina, but it didn't count in the conference standing. It just counted overall. So those are my missteps. So as I mentioned earlier,
that was a pretty good game, though.
I did predict Kansas State. Yeah, it was. I did predict Kansas State to beat Mississippi State. I actually saw that one coming. I think the SEC also isn't as strong as they have been outside the top 3 or 4 teams. I like Arizona State a lot under Herm Edwards. His second year, they went up to Michigan State. I thought Michigan State would have problems with Arizona State's defense, and they did. Arizona State was held Michigan State to 7 points. A close 10-7 game, way better game than the score would indicate. And as I mentioned, I really liked Arizona against Texas Tech, and I picked that one. And of course, I got all the other ones right. So all the other close games that were out there that I correctly picked as well. Florida, Kentucky. I think most people thought that would be a more one-sided game. I had it really close, and it was really close.
Yeah, Kentucky handed that game away.
I had Florida. Yeah, I had Florida winning by 3. They ended up winning by 8, but they still didn't cover. Now against the spread, I broke even last week. I was 15-15, which really isn't too bad. But first week, week 2, I was not very good. But so I picked a lot of other games correctly as well. So we're getting into the meat of the schedule as you mentioned earlier. We're going to see some conference games this week. Next week, the conference games get into full swing. But there's some, Friday night we kick off with Utah at USC. A week ago, this would have been highlighted as probably a showdown for the Pac-12 South, but then USC went in sub-12 against BYU. It's still an important conference game. Utah is a 4-point favorite. I have not picked these games yet. I'm still in the process of looking at all of them, but that'll be a really good Friday night game. People should watch that game.
I have Utah winning.
That should be very entertaining. You like Utah?
I like Utah.
I like Utah a lot, but I am leaning towards USC, and I'll tell you why. And it's which is why I picked USC against Stanford a couple weeks ago, and they did win that game. I like the speed of USC. The true freshman quarterback, first game on the road last week, kind of had a deer in the headlights look at BYU, and BYU's not all that great. BYU's squeaked some wins out, but I'm still. I have to go through some stats and see whether I like USC or not in that game. It's at home, big game. That's where they scored Stanford at home. So if that game's at Utah, I'm going Utah all the way. But at USC, I think a little bit closer game there. But I'm probably going to come out and predict USC in that game. So we'll have to. That'll be one of my upset picks. We'll have to see how that does.
I think USC is going to turn the ball over too much. I think they're too turnover prone, too mistake prone to beat a team that's a bit more seasoned like Utah. Utah went into Provo, and they struggled against BYU in that first half, and they made the adjustments at half. So, I mean, you can see a coaching staff that will come in and they do a good job of making those adjustments. Although they haven't had a tough schedule outside of BYU to this point. I think they'll go into the Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum, and I think that they come out on top against USC. I think USC is just too good at beating themselves, and it's cost them a lot. And by the way, just with USC, we're probably going to see the next athletic director there from outside their realm, and a lot of turnover happening there at USC. And this is a lot of people that that I've talked to said this is what the setup is to bring in someone like Urban Meyer. And Urban Meyer kind of left that door open this past weekend too, with his charades. But that very likely could be the case. So it'll be interesting here. If they win, a BYU victory or a Utah State victory would be pretty big, and could hinder their ability to get rid of the coach too. So, but if they change athletic directors and they're having turnover there, they're gonna try to hold on as much as they can. Pete Carroll doesn't like this, by the way, because as soon as Clay Hilton's gone, and now that Lynn Swann's gone, those are some of his last ties to USC, and his opportunity, potentially his opportunity to actually, to be honored on top despite the sanctions. And that's the thing is, they may not give him the honors or respect because of sanctions if it's not someone that's part of his tree or part of his group of people where he's known. So there's a lot of people that have revolved around over the last 3-4 decades of USC that really don't want to see somebody outside. They're trying to keep it inside, but that's a lot of where the problems and stuff have come from and have stemmed from, because they keep recycling and not allowing the cleaning of house before they build things. Because when they bring in guys like Clay Hilton and Lane Kiffin and stuff like that, yeah, they're over the football program, but those guys above them, the administration above them, are still allowed to manipulate things the way that they want to, because they say, we'll blow up his head, so he's
need to bring in
a big deal.
They need to bring in an experienced sports administrator.
Yeah.
Lynn Swann had no experience. Pat Hayden had no experience.
Lynn Swann was a football player, then he was a broadcaster.
Players.
I remember seeing Lynn Swann on the sidelines for Nebraska games as a broadcaster in the 90s.
Yeah, Pat Hayden was a broadcaster, and he was a lawyer and all those things, but he didn't have any sports administration background.
Yeah.
And they need to bring in. I mean, listen, that would have been a great job for Jeff Long if he hadn't already tagged on at Kansas. Okay, he could have gone in that place and done some good work. And so we'll see who they get. Now, let me make one comment. We'll move on from this game. But here's the scenario where USC wins. Okay, they don't turn the ball over. Number one. Number two, they use that speed to get up early on Utah. And Utah has to open up their offense a little bit. If this becomes a track meet of any way, shape, or form, because USC has made some mistakes, they have some real speed at the skill positions. I mean, they have burner speed. And if that young quarterback can, get his feet under him, legs under him, and play well, that's a scenario. If Utah shuts down that offense and the kid makes some mistakes early, Utah is going to win that game, 27-10 or something like that, right? I mean, it's going to be like that. But if USC can get a couple of early drives, that's the scenario. So I agree with you. Utah is favored and should be favored. I'll just see. When I put my upset hat on, sometimes I get good vibes. So we'll see. We'll see about that. Another really good game is in your conference.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't involve your team.
No, I know.
Michigan, Wisconsin. Michigan, Wisconsin. Man, what do you make of that one?
It's going to be a real test for Michigan. I think it's going to be the game that really does determine what should we expect. Because you and I and a lot of people have picked Michigan to be the team that is in the Big Ten championship. Ohio State looks much better than expected. Penn State has looked good, and even Maryland, even though they stubbed their toe this past week, they've looked really good at times. The Spartans' defense is hardy, so it's time for Michigan State to really separate themselves from other teams in the conference, regardless of which side of the conference that it's on. And this is that opportunity, because this Wisconsin team is like many other Wisconsin teams. They're good and solid on defense in that front seven, and then on offense they have a tremendous running back. Now, a lot of people are a lot higher on Wisconsin's offense than I am. I think it's all predicated around Jonathan Taylor. That's it. He is their offense. They lose Jonathan Taylor. You take him out of the game. You limit him enough, you win. I think that is exactly how you beat Wisconsin. You have to limit and slow down Jonathan Taylor. If that means that you have your front seven, they have to be playing sideline to sideline. You cannot let him break off those long runs. You have to keep him to short little nippets, and you got to put it into the quarterback's hands to make him win the game. And that's it. Regardless of how well the defense plays or not, you have to stop Jonathan Taylor. If you can't stop or slow down Jonathan Taylor, that's the key to this Wisconsin team. That's it. That's the simple ins and outs of it. I know that's a 12 o'clock noon game on Fox. I will definitely be paying attention to that game. I have a wedding on Saturday, a wonderful wedding on Saturday, on a football Saturday. Nebraska plays at 8 Eastern, so we'll see. We'll see what kind of condition I am to watch the game. But I'm definitely going to be paying attention to that game. But it's put up or shut up time for Wisconsin. ESPN favors them 70%, 70 to 30, that Wisconsin wins this game. Again, it's at home, but I just think it's Jonathan Taylor. That's the catalyst right there. Well,
there's two little points for Wisconsin. Number one, they've scored 110 points in 2 games, and they've given up 0.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you get more efficient as a football team. I mean, they came out to shoot against South Florida and just ran the ball down their throat. And we thought at the time, well, South Florida's just not very good. Maybe they have a bad season. But, man,
which might be true.
Teams in the Big Ten that have surprised me. Well, there's 3 Big Ten teams that have surprised me. One is Wisconsin. I just didn't think they had that kind of, explosiveness on offense. It is Jonathan Taylor. It's Ohio State. I thought they would miss a beat, but Ryan Day's done a great job there, and they haven't missed a beat. And they beat a good Cincinnati team. Was it 42-0?
Yeah.
We thought that would be a game, and it wasn't. And Maryland has surprised me, although they came back to earth against Temple the other day. But they've surprised me a little bit as well. But Penn State, they were looking okay, and then they struggled against Pittsburgh. I mean, Pitt actually had a chance at the end of that game to tie that game.
That's a rivalry game. No, it's like Iowa State. It's the game's always kind of close.
It's one of those rivalry games, but except Pitt and Penn State have only played each other the last 3 seasons. That rivalry was put on hold for 20-some years, and so, or the 16, or what it was, 15 or 20 years. So that one's not as long standing as it used to be because of the interruption. But yeah, I'd like to pick Michigan. I'd like to stand by my pick. in the East, although Michigan will still control their destiny in the East because this is a game against the other half of the league. So, they can still run the table in the East and get to the title game. But, man, Wisconsin, like you said, if Michigan can't contain Taylor, and the other thing, too, is Michigan's got to score against Wisconsin. Michigan only scored, 10 points against Army?
Yeah.
I mean, they didn't, this isn't a team that's clicking yet, although we talk about Army like they're nothing. They were 11-2 last year. They're a good football team. And so, it wasn't like, they were some kind of, 5-17 going into Ann Arbor, pull this big surprise. I mean, we talked about that game, before the game, and that was one that I even said, hey, I would love to pick Army in this game, but I did. I wanted to. But I didn't quite pull the trigger, and end up Michigan did end up winning that game in overtime. But man, that was so I don't see Michigan stacking up on both sides of the ball against Wisconsin. Now, true, Wisconsin's wins are against South Florida and Central Michigan, but there's still two FBS schools. I mean, you're talking about 110 to nothing. I mean, that's hard to do. I mean, that's a lot of points and nothing on defense. Against teams that can score. So, Michigan has their work cut out for them. I'm going to have to go with Wisconsin on this one, unless Jim Harbaugh has some secret weapon he hasn't shown yet. And if he was going to show it, he had to show it against Army because they couldn't.
Yeah, that was kind of a dire need. We're going to have to. Can't save the spinach. We're going to have to break it out in this game. That's kind of where it was. They really had him up against the ropes.
Okay, now we've got a Auburn, Texas A&M. That's the big game in the SEC this weekend. We talked about, I think last week, how is A&M for real? I mean, and I think I even said, we'll know after this game, after the Auburn game, right? And so we'll know come Saturday. A&M is actually a 4-point favorite. Auburn struggled a little bit offensively. They were down. They were down against Oregon. Were lucky to win that game. I mean, that was just. They were lucky to win that game. We talked about that. And then they only scored. I think they beat Tulane 24-6. That's not an impressive showing against a team they should beat by more. So I'm not sure Auburn's clicking yet. Right? I mean,
yeah.
I don't know that they're quite,
I mean,
hitting on all cylinders yet.
They have a young quarterback,
and they have to go into A&M.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I'm interested to see what are the statistics that Coach Fisher is against freshman quarterback. Because he can do a lot of things that really confuse these young guys. I mean, I don't know. I don't have a whole lot of hope for Auburn. I think that they played a good game to get by, and I think more so, kind of like Herbert admitted that Oregon choked that game away more than it was Auburn that won the game outright, And
Oregon had that game won. I mean, they should have won that game. I couldn't believe how Auburn was able to steal that thing. Right? That shouldn't have happened. Oregon got too conservative and made a couple of mistakes, and next thing you know, Auburn goes ahead with 7 seconds left. I mean, the pass, the winning pass, was Oregon should not have let that guy get behind him. I mean, it was just crazy
Yeah, it was
that-
kind of like,
that
don't
pass
let that
play
guy.
to begin.
Oh. As long as you
yeah,
don't let
so-
somebody run
yeah, so
right by
I-
you. Yeah.
I like A&M in this game. It's at A&M. Auburn now Auburn did, both these teams put up big points against, subpar competition last week. I think, A&M put up 62 against Lamar, and Auburn put up 55 against some high school. So, but in the games against teams that, are more, that I just think Auburn struggles against quality defenses right now. And so I like A&M in this game. They lost to Clemson 24-10, but everybody's going to lose to Clemson 24-10 or more. Auburn beat Kent State, big deal. The MAC's down. I'd love to see the MAC play the ACC and see who comes out because they're both so bad. You got to take Clemson out of the mix, but
it's funny.
It's not pretty right now.
It's funny you mentioned Clemson because actually, if you look at passing offenses, Texas A&M is actually ranked just behind Clemson in passing offenses. So, and that's the thing is, this Auburn team has a good run defense, but I don't know, watching the game against Oregon, if they're going to be able to slow down Mons enough to where he's not going to be able to, use his arm, because he's a quality quarterback in college football. I'm not going to say he's the next coming, but he's definitely a quality look there at Texas A&M. So I'm leaning Texas A&M
that's why,
in this game as well.
that line is actually down to 3.5.
That's generous.
I go with the first line I see, but I don't adjust them during the week. So I just kind of keep it. Otherwise, trying to keep up with that after I get started is kind of difficult. But so now I like that. There's got UCF goes to Pittsburgh, another Power 5. If you could call ACC Power 5, I'm having difficulty calling them Power 5 right now.
It's loose terminology.
Pittsburgh just lost to Penn State 70-10 at Penn State. So Pittsburgh played Virginia tough. UCF's a 12.5-point favorite. Does UCF continue their role through their schedule? With their schedule, they've already beaten Stanford. If they go undefeated, will they deserve a shot at the table? Seriously.
But they didn't beat Stanford. They boat raced Stanford. It was 21-0 before they could figure out the game started. It wasn't the biggest story in that game was how come UCF can't get enough students into the game. That was the biggest story from that one. Why is it that they're limited to so many? Like they said, they turn away thousands of students every game. I'm like, that's absurd. But I don't know. Pitt is always tough at home. I think this, because of that, this is a potential trap game. UCF and Coach Hype will have to go into this giving him the respect as a Power 5 team the same way they did Stanford. And they have to go in and they have to put their foot to the throttle and don't look back. Run through fences, run through gates, run through whatever you have to. You can't look back because this could be the slip up. If they lose to Pitt, they're done. They're out of it. UConn next week should be a cakewalk. Cincy is going to be a tough game. ECU should be a walkthrough. They're at home against Temple. Temple struggles playing in Florida for whatever reason. USF, UCF, they lose those games when they go to Temple. But Temple usually struggles in Florida for whatever reason. Houston's going to be a good game. And that was the pick that I lost last week. I said my lock pick was Houston wins there, and you picked Washington State. So Houston did everything it could to give that game away to Washington State. And Mike Leach, my God, he pulled out all the stops, trick plays, fake kicks, everything he could think of to get by Houston. My goodness. I mean, it was a fun game to watch, you know? I was just turning on to kind of see where the score and stuff was, and I ended up sitting there and watching the whole thing. My wife wasn't thrilled about that on a Thursday night, watching a whole game that wasn't Nebraska and teams that she didn't know or care about. So, but I did. It was entertaining. So, but yeah, I mean, I
watched that one. Yeah, I watched that one last week.
So it was
yeah,
I got.
Let me tell you the games
winning.
I watched all or part of last week, just to give you an idea. I watched Washington State, Houston. I watched part of Pittsburgh, Penn State. I watched some of Alabama, South Carolina. I watched USC, BYU. I watched Arizona State, Michigan State. I watched the fourth quarter of Florida, Kentucky. I watched Clemson, Syracuse. I watched Florida State, Virginia. I watched Oklahoma, UCLA. I watched Furman, Virginia Tech for obvious reasons. I watched part of Kansas State, Mississippi State, and I watched Texas Tech, Arizona, and Colorado State, Arkansas. How many games was that? That's a lot of games.
How about Arkansas
Get a life, man.
figuring out how to play football last week?
It was pretty good. Well, they found a quarterback. The kid that transferred from SMU, Hicks, just was ineffective. And so Chad Morris started this Starkle kid, and the kid can literally play football. He is the real deal. Then, of course, they blew off 21 straight in the fourth quarter to put that game away. But I was not at the game. I was home.
He's a transfer, isn't he? Starkle?
Yes. He's a good quarterback. I mean, Arkansas, if he'd started against Ole Miss, I think Arkansas would have had a chance to win that game. And so we'll see how they do going forward. That was a nice win for him.
Starkle. He played for Texas A&M, didn't he?
Undisciplined, and I know. I think he's a.
I'd be willing to bet he played for Texas A&M. I think he's a Texas A&M transfer. That's such a unique name. I could have swore he lost the battle to Mons.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree with you. I didn't pay much attention to it. I don't pay a lot of attention to Arkansas. Just number one, they're not. They're not.
Plus, that's your drinking time, right? Can't let their football game cut into your drinking time. I mean, that would just be rude.
Yeah. So, but we're it's out to see. I mean, but yeah, they that's what happened. They found a quarterback. I mean, the guy doesn't throw interceptions at the goal line. That's a really nice thing when you have a guy that doesn't throw interceptions at the goal line. And so, they got San Jose State this week. I will be at that game, sitting in the South Club level, which will be really nice indoors.
Are you making a sign? Are you a sign guy?
No sign.
No sign for TVs.
My wife's working the games. No, I'll be up. I don't get on TV.
You should put that on a sign
up there.
I mean, you could take my wife's working the games in a lot of different ways. You should put that on a sign or a T-shirt.
Yeah, that would make. I'm sure my wife would really appreciate that.
No, like Tiger Woods, you have a lot of golf clubs in your house, and she knows how to use them. So don't. Well, that's a go. That's a no.
So Nick Starkle is from Texas. And he obviously played for somebody else in 2017 because he was 123 for 205, and it wasn't for Arkansas. So I think you're right. I think he's probably a transfer. Yes, from A&M. You are correct, sir. You nailed that one. The transfer from Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
So he's the real deal. He is the real deal.
How about that?
So he is a...
I knew something Kevin didn't know. I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm going to sleep good
right.
tonight.
Yeah, you should be. You should be. Yeah, he's a junior this year. So I think he was able to transfer before. He was probably a beneficiary of the four game transfer rule from last year. 'Cause he did play last year, but he was 15 for 22 last year at A&M. So he was able to. He didn't play. I think he probably played 3 or 4 games, and then was able to transfer by redshirting last year. So
he was number 17.
Yeah, he did pretty well.
How about that?
Yeah, he's
Every now and then I get one. Every now and then.
Yeah. So, so that, as we move down a little bit, 'cause I've got to sign off here in about 20 minutes. But, I'm looking to see it. You got the big game nationally, of course, is Notre Dame at Georgia. And that one is going to be, and Georgia is a 13.5-point favorite in that game. What do you think about that one?
Because it's in Athens, I can't criticize it too much. They have been on. Swift looks great. Fromm looks great. I mean, they've put 30 or more up on everybody.
They haven't played anybody, though.
We're over here. The wind. Yeah, I feel like you're pissing in the wind right now, Kevin. I feel like you're pissing into the wind. It's getting all over my pant leg. But let me get. I see.
They played Vanderbilt, Murray State, and Arkansas State. I mean, come on.
A very respectable Vanderbilt.
There's high schools. Oh, come on. They're 0-3. They haven't even been competitive. There's high schools in Texas that play tougher schedules than those 3 games. I mean, come on. Murray State's FCS. Arkansas State is barely FCS.
Notre Dame's played Louisville, who is not scaring anybody, and New Mexico, independent New Mexico. No, it's the Lobos. Never mind. New Mexico, they're Sunbelt. Never mind.
Yeah, I didn't say Notre Dame's played a great schedule either. I just said that Georgia.
I'm just saying.
Neither of these teams has played anybody. I mean, So,
I'm just saying.
I just think it's hard. It's difficult for me to see Georgia as a 13.5-point favorite over a Notre Dame team that went to the college playoffs last year and has won their first 2 games. And it just
over a Georgia team that has reloaded and is pretty senior at quarterback, running back, solid at wide receiver, a strong, stout defense. A team that probably should have won a national championship game. They kind of like that. I mean, it just seems like.
Yeah, but 2 touchdowns.
No, it's just less than that. But I said because it's in Athens, because they're always so strong in Athens. So that's the only reason why, I could let that slide at 13.5 points. I wouldn't normally put them that far apart, but I believe in this Georgia team. Outside Alabama, obviously,
would you bet on Georgia in this game? Would you put $20 on Georgia in this game to cover 13.5?
I don't see. Like I said, I can excuse the line, but that line's going to come down. It'll come down. It'll have to come down. People aren't going to 13.5. That's a steep number, However,
that's just begging all the Notre Dame. That's just begging all the Notre Dame people to bet on Notre Dame and bring that line down. That's where the money's going to be.
Probably.
Yeah, the late money's going to be on Notre Dame. If that line holds into Saturday, because that's a 7. It's an 8:00 Eastern game. It's a 7:00 Central Time game. I'll be interested to check that line about 6:00 Saturday afternoon and see what happens.
Yeah.
It'll probably plummet. I bet you game time. I'll bet you game time. It's 8.5, something like that.
Yeah, I would take Georgia 8.5.
The site. Yeah, I'll take that, but not 13.5.
No, not 13.5. But like I said, I can excuse the 13.5 because it's at home, and I believe in this team. I mean, it's the thing. They haven't played anybody, but I haven't seen anything really from them in their games that shows that we shouldn't continue to have the same confidence that we had the last couple of years. And Notre Dame has been good,
agree with that. Yeah.
But almost to the fluky good at times. Like they've gotten the benefit of the ball bouncing their way more so than they've been just dominant like Georgia. You see what I'm saying? They've been good and have been able to take advantage of situations and got some lucky bounces versus Georgia. They've looked very dominant in their performances over the last couple of years. And again, Fromm is still the quarterback. Swift still the running back. They still have that stable of skill guys on the outside. Their offensive line is good, and they have a good defense. Doesn't matter if it's pass defense, total defense. I was just trying to look at where they were exactly on total defense. But again, it's tough to say. I mean, the total defense numbers against teams that are really not great. I mean, they're tied for 9th. They've given up 1 offensive touchdown all season.
Yeah, I think Georgia's probably where they should be ranked, and I think Notre Dame's overrated. So, I was just kind of, toying with you there a little bit.
Yeah.
I think Georgia's the favorite, and if this game was in South Bend, I might give Notre Dame a shot, but I think Georgia's.
I would say Georgia by 4.5 or 5.
And I think Georgia's defense is better than Notre Dame's defense. So I think Georgia's just better. Okay, I mean, now I don't think they're that far apart that Georgia can play a sloppy game and win.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, it's the kind of game where, well, you saw last week where USC got sloppy against BYU and lost the game. USC's not good enough to beat anybody when they're not playing well. If Georgia doesn't play well and Notre Dame plays pretty well, I think Notre Dame can win. The same thing as we talked about with Utah and USC. I think Utah should win that game. They're the better team. But they're not that much better that USC can't win the game. And that's what you get in some of these matchups. Some of the teams, like last week, Michigan State's probably better than Arizona State, but some things went Arizona State's way, and they were able to keep the game close and win the game.
Yeah.
There wasn't enough separation for Michigan State to play a bad game. They turned the ball over a couple times they shouldn't have, and things like that. So, I'm going to go with Georgia in this game because I actually think Georgia probably has the best chance to beat Alabama again in the SEC championship game. And maybe knock Alabama out of the playoffs for the first time. Okay.
And Notre Dame doesn't have that
Alabama's
great of a
still
run
pretty
defense
good.
either.
Yeah, I don't think Notre Dame's schedule is going to work again. So they have too many tucks. They still have Virginia, USC, Michigan, Virginia Tech, Stanford. Now, some of those teams aren't as good as they've been, but that's still a pretty tough schedule to just run a gauntlet because you got to get up every week, and they're playing really good teams every week.
Yeah, they're 120th against the run.
With Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Oh, that's not very good. That's not going to be very good against Georgia, right? Because Georgia can run the football. So I like Georgia in this game. I'm gonna now. I'm not going to be able to watch as much this week because I'm actually going to the Arkansas San Jose State game, as I mentioned. But that's a 6:30 local start time, 7:30 Eastern. So I'll get to see most of the day games. We usually leave about 3:30 or 4 o'clock to go to the game. So I'll get the first wave of games, get to see the early games, and then DVR everything else, and watch it over the next couple of days. But Virginia Tech is off this week, so I don't have to worry about fitting the Hokie game into my schedule. So that's a positive.
New Mexico put up 212 yards in a loss to Notre Dame on the ground. Maybe 13 and a half is fair. Maybe.
And they only scored 14 points, though.
Can you count on Georgia to only put up, if they put up 200 yards in rushing?
Oh, they'll score 35 points.
Yeah. Just rushing.
Because they'll also put up 250 through the air. So if they put up 240 rushing, they're going to put up they're going to have a 500-yard game. At least. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think Notre Dame's good as they were last year. They're ranked awfully high, but I don't think they're a top 10 team.
The over-under is 56 and a half.
First game.
You think that's a fair? You take the over on that? 56 and a half.
What is it? 56 and a half?
Yeah.
That's a pretty good over. I don't think I'd bet it at all. That's pretty good. That's a 31-24 game. 30. Yeah, that sounds about right. 35-21. Yeah, that's where I would. So that one. That's one that I.
The money line's
probably wouldn't touch the over/under on that if I was.
minus 650 for Georgia.
Yeah, you don't get much. You got to bet.
Yeah.
You got to bet. You got to bet. You got to bet 10 to win 3.5. That's not a. That's an indicator there that a lot of money on Georgia right now. So, the line just went up to 14 now.
Yeah, that's what I just saw.
It's gone up a half a point since we were even talking.
Maybe they came to the same conclusion about the rush defense and the rush ability. I mean, maybe they looked at what I just looked at. They're like, hey.
They're listening to our show.
Probably. I mean, everybody is these days.
Show. Maybe they're listening to you, Matthew, and you actually moved the line half a point with that comment.
I like to think I'm a line mover.
That'd be interesting.
My line coach in high school would be proud of me for moving the line.
Yeah. That's a different kind of line now, but that's okay. I'm looking for one more game that might be interesting. Well, you have Michigan State Northwestern in your conference. Michigan State's going to be itching for a win after that game last Saturday.
Who's your upset game?
Northwestern.
Let me give you my upset game real quick. My upset game is BYU over
probably,
Washington.
Yeah, that would be a good one to pick.
It's in Provo.
BYU coming off a win over USC. Washington already lost at Cal. I don't know that Washington. We talked about that Pac-12 North, how tough they were going to be early in the season. All of a sudden, you look at it, and Stanford's down. Washington's already lost. And you go, oh, maybe that Pac-12 North isn't as good as we thought it was going to be. It isn't. It's actually not as top heavy as we thought it was going to be because Washington and Stanford have already lost. That would be that. Washington's a 6-point favorite in that game. I'll tell you one that I think Stanford's going to have their starting quarterback back this week, and they host Oregon.
Stanford over Oregon?
That's one Stanford over Oregon is one that I might venture out. I'm not saying it yet, but and the other one I have.
If this was a poker game and you went all in,
12,
I think I would push my chips all in. I would take, if we went, you took Stanford, I took Oregon.
On Oregon?
I think I would go
I haven't
Oregon.
gone there yet, but
I'm just saying.
Yeah, my definite upset. Well, my definite upset pick is going to be USC over Utah. As we talk.
Okay.
I already, and here's. I'll read you my.
And just so people know,
This was shaping up as
I think Oklahoma State beats Texas this weekend too. In Austin.
Well, that was the other one I was looking at, Matthew. I was just going to say in the Big 12 is Oklahoma State, Texas. That's a possibility.
They're underrated.
And they're under the radar for sure.
Oh my goodness!
And that 90 seconds.
And they're running back, man.
And I think part of it too is with Oklahoma State is that they always start out really, really well, and then they
fizzle.
They collapse. So they're never. They have a hard. It's hard to take them seriously for long term because they tease you. They're like, oh my God, they're
60
so good. Look at that
seconds.
offense. And all of a sudden they'll go and lose to Kansas or something stupid like that. That's what they do. That's who they are. But I haven't even looked at them much this year. It's focused because Oklahoma. It's I mean, Jalen Hurts is. I mean, it is just incredible. Now, granted, it was UCLA who really can't do much against anybody, but and I think Oklahoma's off this week. But Jalen Hurts is just off the charts.
He's balling.
But yeah, this should be. I mean, Oklahoma's
10 seconds.
Once again, they played a bunch of nobodies. I mean, they did give up 36 points to Oregon State, which is not pretty. But I can't take Oklahoma State over Texas yet. I can't go there. I'm not sure I'm going to go there. But, I don't do my blog. I'll finish my blog Friday night, Saturday morning. So I do a lot of stewing on this. So I don't do much predicting until I get now, I obviously, the Thursday, Friday games, it's a good game on Thursday night is Houston-Tulane.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. It shouldn't be that close. Houston should just win this outright, but Tulane has been pretty confident the last couple of years.
Tulane's favored.
I know that,
Tulane's favored
because they've won their conference, I think, the last couple of years, and they've been putting up points. I mean, they only put up 6 on Auburn, but that's some pretty stout. That's some pretty stout defense there. But again, at the same time, Auburn only put up 24. I mean,
yeah, Houston. Houston's due for a breakout. I mean, they've had a pretty tough schedule. I mean, Oklahoma and Washington State aren't exactly chopped liver. I mean, those are 2 good teams.
Yeah.
And they gave Washington State all they could handle. They could have won that game with a couple breaks. It was a terrific game. It was a terrific football game.
They're probably the best 2-loss team by far.
Yeah. But we'll see. So that's a Thursday night game. So I'm going to sign off, my man.
All right.
I'll have my blog for anybody listening. My blog will be up. I'm going to put it on. I didn't get it on your site last week, and it was an oversight. I will get it on Cold Hard Truth on Sports and my own kevcrestsports.blogspot.com by Saturday morning. So you can see all. I think it's going to be 26 or 27 games this week. A little bit light schedule. We've got some ranked teams with bye weeks. So I'll have 26, 27 games up there. So.
All right. We look forward to it.
We will talk to you next week.
All right, Kevin Crest, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I want to get a little bit more into some of these picks as well. But I'm going to bring on one of our top contributors in football, college football, and NFL, as well as our editor for boxing and the host of the Boxing Source radio show, James Bell. How you doing tonight, James?
Yeah, just getting through the whole thing with the ACC, man. That conference is horrible, man.
Yes. Would you be willing to say the American Conference is better than the ACC Conference?
Well, I mean, you had Cincinnati that did beat UCLA in the first game this year, and you have UCF defeating Stanford. So, hey, maybe they, got something there,
Memphis beat Ole Miss.
Houston did lose to Oklahoma pretty badly. And so did Cincinnati lost to Ohio State pretty badly, too. But
I mean, those are 2 of the 5 best teams in the country. Those 2 teams are supposed to bomb everybody they run into. That is not another top 5 team.
But in comparison to who was it, Georgia Tech lost to?
My goodness.
Citadel.
Citadel.
The Citadel, man. Like, come on, man.
The Citadel.
Like that's beyond horrible there, man.
If your school name sounds like it was from an Angels and Demons movie, you probably shouldn't be winning football games against Power 5 teams. I don't know. My goodness.
Yeah, but I mean, that was all bad, and I mean, you did have good win by Arizona State on the road against Michigan State.
Yep. That was one of my losses.
Michigan having that overtime win over Army. What was the key game? You had that. You had LSU. having that little scare against, what was it, Northwestern State, Go Tigers. So, they, didn't have a sleepwalk through their game after defeating Texas on the road. So it was a pretty balanced type of week there. You had Alabama that, had a little bit of a slow start against South Carolina until Najee Harris had that big run after the catch.
That angry run.
That touchdown. So,
dude, he straight NCAA'd him, man. He mushed him with the stiff arm. Just mushed him. Got mushed.
Yeah.
It wasn't like...
he got thrown down, man.
Mushed him. And then the next dude, in a 5-yard period, in a 5-yard space, hurdles the next guy and stays in bounds. Didn't even like truck the guy. He just ran into the dude. And the next guy tries to tackle him. He bumps him and he falls in the end zone. It's like, dude, he big fella, y'all.
That kind of like shows,
big fella,
why they went after, why Alabama went after Harris, and Harris was, hailed by many as the top running back coming out of that class. So they just, didn't have it to the point where he could, start full time because, Damian Harris was still there.
Yeah.
And Josh Jacobs was still there too. So
yeah.
It was like they couldn't feature him full time because you already still had 2 other running backs that were still in school. So
yeah, I mean they're always pretty stacked there at running back.
Yep, and Clemson had that easy game, against Syracuse. That was a prime time game, but we saw, Syracuse get torched by Maryland. But the disappointing, game of the day, and I did talk about this on the Cold Hard Truth on College Football Instagram page. Follow the CHD on CFB. For some inexplicable reason, the most overrated team in college football, the Florida Gators, got past Kentucky 29-21 with Felipe Franks getting hurt. Pretty much, what was that, near the end of the third quarter?
Yeah.
And the Gators scored 19 unanswered points after basically getting dominated for most of the game.
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, man. Like, y'all had this game. Kentucky had the game on lock. Had all the momentum. Stopped Florida on 4th down where they, took out Felipe Franks. And then after that, they couldn't do anything else. I'm like, how do you blow that? How do you blow that?
Then comes in Kyle Trask. And, that's the thing is, I don't think Kentucky, I think he did some things that didn't sit right. Maybe he threw an accurate football. Maybe that's what it was. It wasn't that accurate. It was more accurate. Maybe that's what it was. But like I said, people were saying Florida was going to win because Sawyer Smith wasn't going to be able to go out there and win. He threw 3 interceptions, and anytime you throw 3 interceptions in a game, your team is likely to lose. I don't think outside of the 3 interceptions he played terribly. He was 23 for 35, 267 yards. He was getting over 7.5 per reception, and he threw 2 touchdowns. Where it seemed like mid-third quarter, into third quarter, things weren't clicking for the offense. And they weren't staying on the field long enough. So I think that's kind of part of the problem. I would have liked to see, I'd like to see Smoke get the ball a bit more, or give the ball to Rose. Your two backs, especially Smoke. Smoke was getting over 5 yards a carry average. 16 carries for 81 yards.
Right.
Feed him. And they didn't. They went away from it. But this Gators team did show that they take donations, clearly. They take donations. They should have lost to Miami. I got a donation from Miami in the first game of the season.
Yep.
Should have lost to Kentucky. We'll see if Tennessee donates a game to them. I said before the season.
Well, Tennessee had that. What was it? That first game that they lost, and about 10% of the team wanted to transfer.
Yeah.
And then
they played.
They turn around.
They played BYU close. They lost by 3 to BYU.
Yeah, they lost to BYU in overtime.
But BYU looks a lot more formidable. I'm picking BYU to beat Washington this week. That's my upset game of the week. Washington goes into Provo, Utah. It's a tough place to play. But Tennessee this past week played Tennessee Chattanooga 45-0. So it's a noon game for those guys. It's in the swamp, and I don't know. It's I think Tennessee. This is one of those rivalry games, that we see between them. It's always ends up being a pretty close game, and Trask is clearly set to be the starter for the Gators. We'll see if he is how he can come out and play. I think he's a junior, so it's not like it's he's going to be too shy about getting in. He's riding high off of what do you call an 18-0 run to come back and beat Kentucky. So that's like twice in the last 3 years that Florida has been able to squeak by Kentucky, But we'll see, I don't know how long the Gators can hold on to this. Miami, a donation. UT Martin, that is a donation. Clearly, Kentucky, there's a donation. Gator fans are getting upset. I see you guys getting upset. Okay, cool. I'm just saying, Gators are just not. It's not quality football, and the biggest problem is mostly on the offensive side of the ball. And until that changes, it's going to be very mediocre. They have Townsend and then Auburn. So it's Auburn, LSU, South Carolina, Georgia, Vandy, Mizzou, and FSU. And Mizzou lost that first game to Wyoming, came back and bombed on West Virginia. And then they had, Southeast Missouri State, 50-0. So I'm interested to see, 'cause South Carolina put up a good stand there in that first half. I want to see what they're really made of. But South Carolina, Mizzou, I think that's probably going to be a fun game to watch this weekend. But just looking at the Gators' schedule, it is foreseeable that they don't win another game the rest of the year, maybe until FSU. And in that game, I don't know. We'll see where their offense goes.
They have they have that gimme against Townsend, and then
Vanderbilt. They should beat Vanderbilt. Sorry.
Yeah, it'd be Vanderbilt. But other than that, no. Like you're facing 3 top 10 teams. You go on the road to South Carolina after going on the road against LSU. And you have Georgia game, and they're gonna get blasted.
At LSU, at South Carolina, Georgia. They got Vandy at home. They go to
Missouri,
Columbia, and they have FSU at home.
Yeah, it's gonna be bad. For them.
What do you make of the? What do you make of the? They're saying Steve Spreaker has been throwing some shade on Willie Taggart.
What do you say? What do you say in reference to Willie Taggart?
I have to pull it back up. I don't want to misquote what he said. Let me pull it back up here.
Mm-hmm.
Let me find it here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyways, we'll keep moving forward till I find it.
Well, it's a reference to the whole thing with Florida State, and I mean they did have that last game against Virginia where they lost. They allowed 21 points in the fourth quarter. The majority of that game, Virginia held the ball. So the defense was on the field for a long time out there, and I guess they just couldn't hold on. Either they didn't have the depth, one, because that to me shows that you don't have enough depth on that team. But part of that could be because a lot of the players that they did have from the previous regime left or were thrown out because they were pretty much lollygagging. And the thing about it is that a lot of people are trying to go for Taggart's head, but I'm like, wait a minute. Y'all had a guy in there that pushed for Bobby Bowden to be retired probably before he really wanted to be retired. Then y'all were all gassed up because when he got in there, he won a national championship, and then he was supposedly close to winning another one, but y'all saw signs of how they basically escaped virtually every game until that Oregon game. And then after that, what did they have following up with that? What were those top classes that, he's supposed to pull in? Where were those top athletes that he was supposed to be basically getting? They weren't coming in there. And so what you had like guys that were not doing well on defense. You had a bad offensive line. You had average quarterbacks out there. And the only thing you could basically get was, fairly good running backs. You ain't had no dominant receiver coming through there,
Yeah.
No depth in the defensive line. And so this is what you get. And that's why, they had that, that season where they barely made it to a bowl game that year before Taggart came in, right? And then they had the losing season in the first year with Taggart, right? So This is still the product of Jimbo Fisher's, regime. And even if you want to try to see if you could try to put it on Taggart, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Look at Texas A&M. What have they done? What have they done in the SEC West so far? It's still been the same way that
Pretty
they
much.
have been ever since they joined the SEC. They have not even reached better than third in the SEC West.
And frankly, it was the same way that they were when they were in the Big 12.
Exactly. You only had that one time where they beat Kansas State in 1998 in the Big 12 title game. And I'm like, come on. Texas A&M hasn't done anything, that big since. So,
Well, Johnny Manziel
Johnny
beat
Manziel
Alabama.
go through there, but
That's about it.
Did he win a SEC West title? Nope.
No, he just beat Alabama. I'm just saying that's really
Just beat Alabama. And that's it.
that's really what it's been.
So that's all you got. So for those that are like trying to go after Willie Taggart,
However,
come on, you ain't even giving him 2 years, 2 seasons at Florida State.
This is something
and y'all want him gone?
I caution fans getting too involved in the coaching hires and be too overly negative on the hire. I get that FSU fans want to be at the top. I get that. As a Nebraska fan, I intimately appreciate that. However, where you went from Jimbo Fisher and to Willie Taggart, those are very different kinds of philosophies and ways of going about just generally coaching, schemes, the personnel. So is it going to take some time? Yeah, I would imagine it would. However, I don't think most of us would think necessarily this is where the outcome would be. It would be this much of a struggle. But again, it's a pretty big changeover from philosophy. Willie runs a bit tighter ship. Sometimes guys don't like that. So a lot of people have left. So now he has to work on, building what he wants his culture and what he wants his teams to look like. I mean, he still has good talent there. In a similar situation, he struggles at the quarterback position, like FSU has, or like Florida has. But FSU, you can put them in there too. They've struggled there too. But I think Hornibrook would be good to run the system under a transition, although I think his systems generally work better with somebody that's more mobile, more dual threat, just in general.
Yeah, and the thing is that Blackman has been there like a full year plus as a starter. So it's like you're not gonna remove Blackman as a starter like that, but
he should.
Get a graduate transfer.
But that's the thing is he should.
In Hornibrook.
But that's the thing is he should. We got to this point of the season, and clearly Blackman is not the answer. He brought in a grad transfer in Alex Hornibrook. Put Alex in. Let him be the game manager. Let him feed Anchors the ball so Anchors can, let Anchors get his. Because that team's offense will move and can win based on that. If they keep the ball, see, that's the thing is, the funny thing is right now, what he has is more like Wisconsin, where Alex came from, and they can win like that.
Yeah.
Because there's a questionable offensive line, but the thing is, you can hide some of the the blemishes in an offensive line if you run more. See, that's why a lot of teams. This is where the spread concept came from. This is where the run pass option stuff comes from, because when you don't have that beef, those tractor trailers to run people over and just have your will with them, you have to be able to, essentially everything starts as a run block and you play off of that. So if the defense has to play run and they have to honor run, you have options over the top. You have options on the outside. This is why, even with spread teams, like, let's take an example. I'll use Nebraska as an example. Scott Frost always runs down the middle of the field. He will always run down the middle of the field. Always. He'll always have some design runs down the middle, regardless if they're working or not. Because if he shows that I will go to the middle, you have to honor the middle, because that's the quickest way to pick up the most yards, other than a long pass and somebody breaking away. Other than that, that's what it is. That straight line to rip off 7, 12 yards on a run, just right up the middle. So when teams have to honor that, that opens up the outside, because you have to bring those guys down to the middle. So it opens up the outside. That opens up the slants. That opens up the other veer routes. That it's opening up other options for the wide receivers, and it opened up options to where now the quarterback or running back can have a greater opportunity to get to the edge, where a lot of teams that are more athletic have an extreme advantage over others, is by getting to the edge. So if you can do it to where now you've sucked the defense in, they have to stay honest to the middle, you have more of an edge to work. So that's the thing, is with what Willie isn't doing is allowing a quarterback to manage the game so they can set them up to control the time of possession, making less turnovers, and running the ball down their throats to open up other options. Anchors can run it between the tackles, although he would prefer the edge. And he's a good edge runner. Mm-hmm. That's the thing, is if you don't keep them, that thing is, people don't respect the run in the middle from them. He's getting chunk yardage off of some good blocks, and then his extra effort. A lot of it is, after contact yardage. A lot of it's yak. So he's done a tremendous job as a running back doing that. Now, if the quarterback was managing the game better and you put a guy that's a bit more accurate in there, that changes the dynamic of it. Again, that's not traditionally Willie Taggart's offense. But Blackman hasn't shown that he can make good decisions, and he's more of a liability than he is.
Yeah.
Than he is something that is that'll boost the team. I'm not neglecting him as a talent. I'm just saying that this is not the direction that FSU should be going right now. They should cut bait with they should bench him for Alex Hornibrook if they want to save the season. I think that's the best direction to go right now. If Alex Hornibrook proves to be a disaster, and it's not due to poor play calling, then put Blackman back in and skate by and try to figure out a way to Jimmy rig yourself into another bowl game so you're not, breaking your streak. So that's what I would say there. But they have to work mightily to make some decisions. Again, you don't get a grad transfer to come to your school to necessarily just sit idly aside, especially a guy that was at a program that's winning division championships.
Yep. And the thing about it is, it's like, like we were saying here when I came on, like the ACC is not that good at all. So other than this Clemson game, you really don't have a very difficult, test that's out there. I mean, unless if you have something against Louisville where, they looked a little bit better than previous years when they played Notre Dame. But other than that, you just don't have that real challenge out there in the ACC, particularly in your division. All you got is Clemson, and that's it. You should be able to beat, NC State this year. You get through Louisville, you beat Wake Forest. Syracuse might not be that good this year after coming out of a 10-win season. And then you have that, Miami game. So I don't see where they can't, just turn around and, not get at least, 7 more wins? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 more wins.
Yeah, because they have to play their conference, and that's a positive. That's the positive note for them.
Yeah, this year that's the positive. And they can play their conference this year. Might be the worst. This might be the worst that the ACC has been in a very long time. So there is that.
So what do you think of Notre Dame, Georgia? The line's at 14 now. It was at 13.5 when we started the show. It's moved to 14.
Wow.
This Irish defense is 120th in the country against the rush. They have played Louisville and New Mexico. New Mexico in a loss, in a 66-14 loss, put up 212 rushing yards, averaging 4.6 per rush.
Jeez. Yeah, this Notre Dame team might be, worse this year than it was last year. And this ain't going to be a good look for them. Georgia's, historically been one of the best running teams in the country. And you're going to have that type of abysmal run defense. Yeah, that's not going to look good for you going up against Georgia. And, it's going to be, not really a good gauge of, to me, how good Georgia may really be.
Georgia's 8th in rush yards. 8th.
They're gonna cover. I see them covering that 13 or whatever it is.
It was 13.5. And that's what I said. I said 13 because it's in Athens. I can give the 13.5. It went up to 14. Clearly, there's a lot of Georgia money with that line. Notre Dame fans are going to come bet this down late. It's probably more of a 8, -8. That's probably a fairer line, really, where you would go in and bet, like I would bet Georgia 8, -8. But I'm not at home in Athens against with this rushing team. Again, I keep saying that Georgia's rushing offense, it's 8th. It's ranked 8th in the country. They're averaging 7.6 yards a carry. Right? They clearly put up yards on the ground. It's not a question that they can run. But they're 35th in passing too. I mean, they've thrown 1 interception all year, averaging over 10 yards per reception. Per attempt. 13 per completion, 7 touchdowns. Almost 380 or 280 yards a game. Like it's serious. And is that what they're going to put up against Notre Dame? You know, you might see a turnover or two. You know, Fromm might throw an interception. The Irish fans are going to get excited. But they're all predicated on the pass. Like, they really have to. Notre Dame really has to pass the ball. They lean on Ian Book a lot. I don't know if he can sustain it again, because it's not just coming from one end. It's not. Georgia has one of the top defenses in the country too. It's talking total defense too. So they don't give up much of anything when they do. So I know they're top. I think they're ninth. Yeah, they're ninth in total defense. They've given up one touchdown all season. You know, you might squeeze out 3 yards in a play. So, you know, we'll see. It's going to have to be. This is really where the coaching comes into play, because talent-wise, location, and as far as, you know, overall team, Georgia has the advantage. That's why they're a 2-touchdown favorite right now at home against what's said to be a top 10 rated team. So it'll be interesting. I have Georgia winning. I would say I would give them 8. We'll see if it's 14. I think 14 is a little high. Not that they can't. Like you said, you're picking them to cover 14. It's always tough when you have 2 ranked teams to say, yeah, we'll cover 2 touchdowns. That's
14.
8. I give them 8, but we'll see. We'll see. It's going to be a good game, and that's probably going to be the biggest game of the week, right there. I mean, it is prime time on CBS, 8:00 on CBS. So, all right, we got about 22 minutes left in the show. Since I have you on, I did want to talk to you a little bit about the fight that happened this weekend with Tyson Fury, who won by unanimous decision. But if you watch the fight, you could really see that the fight could have and maybe should have been stopped because of a couple of large cuts that took place in the third round. Obviously, this is the difference between championship fighters and guys that are that don't make it to that. They can't sustain that level. But talk a little bit about the fight. Do you think that they probably should have stopped the fight, or what do you make of this? Was this more of a hurt to Tyson Fury's character and reputation, or was this a situation where he showed adversity? What do you make of it?
Well, I mean, a lot of reaction from this particular fight is that, you know, Fury didn't look as good in the ring as he did in his previous fight against Tom Schwartz. That, you know, he wasn't, you know, moving around the ring as well. He wasn't controlling the pace of the fight that well, and he allowed, you know, Otto Wallen to get to the inside a lot, particularly in the early rounds. And then there in the third round, once they were in the corner, Fury took a left hook up close, and that's what opened up the cut. And that the severity of that cut made it very difficult for him to go through the rest of the fight. And that's it was really close to, like I said, really close to being stopped. A lot of people felt that it should have been stopped because of how severe it was. So I think with the, as much that was on the line there for Tyson Fury, I think that was, pretty much a factor in why the fight was able to continue. But even then, you still had it to the point where, Tyson Fury looked like he wanted to make an effort to, do something to Otto Wallin, and couldn't really affect Wallin like he did to Tom Schwartz. So that was one thing I did see from this particular fight, is that, even with the amount of difficulty that Tyson Fury had to go through, once he went through like some sense of urgency out there against Wallin and tried to, throw some punches with real intention, Wallin was still there in front of him.
Yeah, and there was a couple times where Wallin was hurt, and because his head was down, I don't think he saw it. So he didn't capitalize on an opportunity to potentially get a knockout. I saw that in like 3 different rounds. And again, that's really when his back was against the wall, where, it was very realistic. I think in the 5th round, and then I think 5th round, 8th round, and then the 11th. Otto Wallin hurt him in the 12th round again, and he stood in there. So it's heart and chin is not something really you question with him, with Tyson Fury. However, his decisions in the ring is really what worry me. If I was in his corner, I think he was a little too reckless in this fight. Like you said, letting him in. I think he just wanted to sit back and box from a distance. But I think what he showed more is, I think he showed that he's that susceptible to being cut. If that's a fight against Wilder, do you think they stop that fight, or do they let that keep going?
If it's a cut against Wilder, then I think it would have been, a much more dangerous situation. And I don't think that it really would have went that far, because I think Wilder would have, tried to, go after Tyson Fury, with the intent that Wilder usually does. He's not really one to be that accurate when he throws power shots, but he at least would, try to, go after the cut. Whether he misses wildly or not, he would still go after that cut, and if he would land, then it would be very, very bad for Tyson Fury in that case.
Yeah, I feel like after seeing him hurt like this in this fight, it could diminish. That's the thing, is like maybe this is, it maybe plays into the fight for him to be a bigger favorite as far as those that are trying to bet to make, because I'm sure Wilder will be a bigger favorite this time going into the fight than he was the last time around. And he was favored. But we'll have to see. Let's see how the fight
he was
against
favored in that first fight, but after going through the fight, and it ended up being a draw. And a lot of people thinking that Fury won that fight.
Yeah.
That the next fight, they would have had, more people would have been picking Fury.
Yeah.
But, now seeing that, after this performance, that, kind of like affects a lot of things.
I think the biggest advantage Tyson Fury had was underappreciation for his ability to box. And I think Wilder underestimated him. And that's how he was able to come out. And again, most boxers that can actually box in the heavyweight level will outbox Wilder. He's not a good boxer. And that's an understatement. But Wilder was using his jab pretty good at points in the fight. But if he's just throwing his jab, I think Tyson Fury was doing a good job of moving around the ring, getting around it, getting in, scoring points, and outclassing him in the process. So, I think that's what won him points. I had Tyson Fury winning on my card. I think you did too. But the thing is now, Wilder more so knows what to expect. And I think he knows that he doesn't have to really fear the power side of it. So he can be a bit more reckless with his punches, which he always is. But he can go for more home run shots because he knows he could get outboxed. And he doesn't have to worry about the power. I don't know what Otto Wallen's chin is like. Obviously, he's survived that fight. I haven't seen any of his other fights. I didn't score that fight because I was at a disadvantage being able to I think intelligently talk about Otto Wallen. So I didn't score that fight. It wasn't a fight that was going to be on my and I missed part of the beginning too, so I was late coming into it because of other obligations I had. But I think Wilder knows he's going to have to come in and try to put Tyson Fury away quick. But that's the thing is Tyson Fury's going to have to go to the body early and often with Wilder because he leaves the body open. And you can work out as much as you want, but if you get a well-placed shot to the ribs, your left side, I mean, that's your liver, that's your lungs, that's your ribs. He might be able to cause enough problems to where Wilder's hands comes down, he's not throwing as much. Plus, Wilder seems to be susceptible to hand injuries too. So, maybe, I don't know, trying to get him to, get him swinging and swinging wildly, and he can box his way out of it. That's the thing is like that first big fight. I mean, we saw it with Canelo, Triple G, the first fight. I think Canelo outboxed him in that fight, and I had Canelo winning the first fight. It was a draw. Second fight, it was more of the same. It's just Canelo looked even better in the second fight, which he won. So, that's the thing. Tyson Fury would need to come out in this fight and look even better than he did in the first fight if he's going to outbox him and let it go to the scorecard. He can't get knocked down. He can't. Because for most people that were looking at it, even though it was a points thing, they looked at he was knocked down twice, so Wilder won. It's not about how many times you knock someone down. It's about how many points you win. If you lose every other round, but those couple rounds that you knock someone down, you're going to lose. You should lose because you didn't get enough points.
Yeah.
So that's the thing is he has to come out. He has to make sure that he doesn't get knocked down. I don't think any of those punches were all that solid of punches. I think the first one, I think it was more so he was kind of. I have to go back and watch it. It was kind of more so he was moving, the way he was moving. I didn't think it was that solid of a knockdown. And then in the last round, it was more of a grazing punch, but Wilder's grazing punch is probably going to knock out most people. So he did get up from it and made it through the round. But that's the thing is he has to look better. I thought Fury looked good in that first fight against Wilder. He outboxed him. He should have won, but he's going to have to look better, outbox him, and not get knocked down this time. I think that's going to have to be the key to it. Obviously, it's going to play a factor. People are going to start targeting that now. If they can get him cut, which that's never been really a problem for Tyson Fury. But again, when you don't give somebody the respect that you need to, I mean, they're heavyweights. They're still heavyweights. That was a nice left hook right to the brow and just split him. He thought it was a headbutt. His corner said it was a headbutt. And I thought it was really interesting that the ringside ringside analyst guy or commentator.
Yeah, commentary.
He's like, no, they said it was, they reviewed it and it was from a punch. That was a lot of information. That might have changed the way Tyson Fury fought. So I would, as media, you have to kind of caution in the process of what you're sharing with somebody might giving them an advantage.
Right.
Otto Wallen might have lost that fight because the media guy told him, listen, it wasn't an accidental clash of heads. It was from a punch. And this fight could go as a loss. And you saw it on the trainer's face. He's like, well, shit.
Yeah.
Fury came out with he came out with a different attitude following that.
Kind of changed after that, But the thing about it is, they should have known that it was from a punch, whether it came from the referee or from the the Nevada State Athletic Commission.
Yeah,
because
that's fair.
They're supposed to know what that cut came from, whether it's judged as a headbutt or judged as a punch. Because if you don't, then you basically, they could have just said, "Hey, we'll go ahead and see how many rounds we could get in, and then cut this thing short and go to the early scorecards." But they couldn't do that. They had to go through the whole fight. So
yeah, and that's the thing that
was the thing that kind of raised eyebrows from a lot of fans, is that they didn't expect a ESPN to come in there and tell the trainer Ben Davison that no, it didn't come from a headbutt, man. It came from a punch. When that's supposed to be the responsibility of the referee or referee Tony Weeks or whoever's there from the athletic commission that says, "Hey, that came from a punch, man, not from no headbutt." So, yeah, that's going to be that's still going to be a topic of discussion here over the next few days.
Yeah, and I don't know. And you always wonder, because in boxing, you can dispute the win or the loss with whatever commission you're with. Because it was a decision. It wasn't a knockout or technical knockout. So Otto Wallen's people, and he said it. He put it out on social media. He said they probably should have stopped that fight. I should have won from stoppage because he was bleeding so much. But, he didn't make any excuses. He was like, I went and did what I needed to do. I'm better for the experience, even though I lost, even though he does say, I think they should have stopped it. So.
Yeah, because, there's a lot of instances, especially, coming off of, that time, what was it? Like, when they had there was like a title unification fight at super lightweight between Jose Ramirez and Maurice Hooker. And, Ramirez was able to, get the stoppage win or TKO win over Maurice Hooker there in that particular case. But, the referee stepped in there pretty much at the opportune time because, just a few, like a couple weeks earlier or something like that, a couple of boxers died after injuries in the ring where they didn't, stop the fight there. So it's basically a matter of judgment as far as like what these referees, do. But with Tony Weeks and the ramifications that were involved in this particular fight, they definitely had that in mind when they saw Tyson Fury being cut severely in this particular bout. That if he ends up losing this fight, that rematch with Deontay Wilder is out. So
yeah,
they gave it a good amount of leeway for that fight to continue and get to the end of those 12 rounds.
So what do you make of Wilder Ortiz too? Because Ortiz,
that's going to be a wash. It's going to be a wash. It's going to be Wilder is going to get another first round knockout. Ortiz has like dropped off severely since their first fight last year. So
really?
I see this being a first round knockout for Deontay Wilder. It's not going to be that difficult. Ortiz is definitely on his way out.
Now, so you don't think that there's going to be any sort of it's basically like his only other rematch is just going to be a wash.
Right.
Huh.
It's going to be a wash. Just like the fight that Wilder had against Taverne in the rematch. This
So
is going to be a wash.
You think Ortiz is taking this for the money?
Yeah, basically. I think so.
So you don't think that there's any desire for him to try to win?
He's taking the money for this fight because he was supposed to take the money to fight Anthony Joshua and didn't because either him or his team messed up the deal. So now, they said basically rejecting the deal because they were promised the Deontay Wilder rematch. And so there you have it. Now, he better be getting paid off some good money for this fight because it's going to be a quick one. And that's what I got for that. Looks like we're pretty much winding down on this show. So.
All right. Well, that is actually going to do it for this week on the Cold Hard Truth on Sports. Be tuned to turn in next week. Subscribe to the podcast. wherever you listen to podcasts. Download the free Spreaker app. And go check out things on Facebook. We started back with the Facebook Live and everything again. So that's all for this week. Be sure to tune in next.
Thank you for using BlogTalkRadio. Goodbye.
Stay tuned for more. I'm out.